Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. You're taking a look at our running back rankings for week number 1, and we might have been a little concerned about Saquon Barkley, but not at all for this week's matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. Christian McCaffrey, he's back, going to take on the Seahawks. Going to be fun to see him out there doing his thing. Bijan Robinson goes from the number 1 consensus running back in the preseason to number 3. And Trevon Etienne, Heath, limited in practice on Wednesday, says he's going to be good to go. Are you fully confident in Trevon Etienne?
I'll be fully confident as long as that limited's removed before Friday. But it's not like there's a decision to be made on Thursday night. If you have both Saquon and Trevon Etienne, you just start both of those guys.
Yep, that's a good spot to be in. And we're joined now by our buddy, Robert Turbin, former NFL running back. You remember him mostly from his days with the Seattle Seahawks. Robert, it's great to have you back with us here on Fantasy Football Today. So I'm going to ask you some questions about a lot of these running backs, and the guys will react to it as well. Let's start with the rookies, because a big topic of conversation with us. We haven't got a chance to speak to you. Oh, he's showing off hardware there. Which league is that from?
It took me 5 leagues to do it, but I do want the world to know that I am a fantasy champion officially.
Okay.
Now we lost in our league because of an unfortunate injury. I lost in the first round of the playoffs, but I did win a championship. They got a nice, I think this might be a picture of me right there. I don't know if you guys can see it or not.
Okay.
But, I got some good hardware to take home. My son wore this to school for 2 weeks straight.
That's amazing. Well, listen, congratulations. Unfortunately, you're not going to win it in our Fantasy Football Today league, but you'll try. You'll definitely try. Let's talk about some of these rookie running backs, Robert. So I want to ask you just we got a highlight game between Ashton Jeanty and TreVeyon Henderson. I think everybody's all in on Ashton Jeanty, but just the outlook for Jeanty and the outlook mostly for TreVeyon Henderson as this pass-catching running back that may work into a bigger role. What do you think about both these guys going into their head-to-head matchup this week?
Well, the two differences is Ashton Jeanty is going to get a lot of action right away. He's going to be involved, obviously, getting a lot of touches. He's going to be involved in the passing game for the Raiders, and it's going to be start to finish. And so from an opportunity standpoint, you like having Ashton Jeanty, because he's going to get the ball. Now, how impactful he is with the football, still remains to be seen. TreVeyon Henderson, is a guy that everybody's intrigued by because of what he was able to do in the preseason. Coming out of college, a little bit of high expectation there, but really shined on the preseason stage. And so you feel like over the course of the season, his opportunities will continue to grow. Maybe not so much right away, but I think he'll still be impactful in the Patriots offense.
Heath, I know you're really high on TreVeyon Henderson. Is this going to be a strong rookie debut, or is it going to be one of those, I can't believe Ramondre Stevenson did this?
I don't really expect Ramondre Stevenson to surprise us in any way. We have a pretty good idea what Ramondre Stevenson's going to do. He's going to go about 4 yards and fall down. But the key is, and I'm a little bit lower on TreVeyon this week than I am for the full season because of what Robert was talking about. I think it could take a couple of weeks, but if he does what he does in the preseason, if he just breaks off a 60-yard touchdown, it's just going to be over. And I'll probably tweet that. It's over. He's taken over the job. Give TreVeyon all the touches. You just don't know if that's going to happen in week 1. Against the Raiders, seems like a pretty good opportunity. Or if it's going to happen in week 2 or week 3, and then he's going to take all the
I feel like that already happened within the last month where TreVeyon Henderson was making so many big plays that it was over. It's going to be really interesting to see it. We know the Raiders are probably, if it's a Pete Carroll defense, probably a lot of zone coverage. That opens things up underneath for any running back that can catch passes. This dude can do it very well. Henderson can.
Another guy we're looking at, Robert, is Omarion Hampton, and there's been some different reports about who would be the starter for this week now that Najee Harris is back after dealing with that eye injury. So tough matchup Friday against the Chiefs. What are we expecting from Hampton in his NFL debut in Brazil?
Well, I imagine Omarion Hampton's going to start, particularly because he's been there. Najee Harris did have the injury. He was out for a little while. So Omarion Hampton, he's been the constant in terms of being there, being at practice, being a part of this offense. And I think very similar to Jeanty, he's going to have a lot of opportunity. He's going to get a lot of carries, in this football game. He can catch the football out of the backfield. And so for that reason, I like actually Omarion Hampton a lot more than Najee Harris in week 1.
Yeah, I hope that's the case. And, maybe they see Najee get worked back in a little bit slowly. But Harbaugh did sort of refute that report. Now we're going to get Hampton starting. And so we'll see how he does against the Chiefs in that matchup on Friday night. Another guy I want to talk to you about, Robert, is R.J. Harvey. A little bit of a difference of opinion here about what will happen in week 1 against the Titans. I think I'm probably the most optimistic. Heath, you're probably the most pessimistic. Dave's Goldilocks. He's right in between there in terms of how the porridge will go. But in terms of R.J. Harvey against the Titans this week, Robert, what are you thinking?
I got to go with Heath on this one. I think that this is going to be J.K. Dobbins' backfield. until otherwise. RJ Harvey can make some plays, but I think it'll be spotty, throughout the season. As long as J.K. Dobbins can stay healthy, he'll be able to do some things on third down and make some plays. But I don't think he's a consistent starter in the way that some fantasy managers see him right now.
All right, so something to ponder there. You obviously feel similar. Not necessarily that Dobbins is going to start, but that
right.
Be a little bit cautious.
I think it's going to be a committee. Like, I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to have many 20-touch games. I don't think R.J. Harvey's going to have any 20-touch games as long as Dobbins is healthy. I think this is an underrated, tough matchup for running backs. Titans were very good against pass-catching running backs. They've been very good against the run in the past. And I don't think we see more than 10 to 12 touches for R.J. Harvey in this game. That might be too high based on what Robert's saying.
And he's the toughest player for you to rank this week as we're taking a look at some of the rankings and how we're going about this. So the toughest player for Heath to rank is Omarion Hampton. The toughest one for you to rank is Travis Etienne. For me, it's Tony Pollard, just with the matchup against the Broncos. Robert, I want to stick there with you on Travis Etienne. Again, Dave saying it's the toughest player for him to rank. This Jacksonville backfield seems like it could be wide open. Tank Bigsby, Breece Hall, another rookie that has a chance to make some plays here. What's your take on this Jacksonville backfield for the season and also for the Week 1 game against Carolina?
Yeah, super difficult to rank where Travis Etienne kind of fits into this fantasy world because I think the Jaguars are going to kind of ride the hot hand, whichever game that is. And so all those guys are going to get opportunities, in my opinion, and whoever, gets hot, breaks a tackle, makes a big play, is probably the guy they're going to stick with throughout the rest of the game. And so that kind of hot and cold, I'm not a big fan of that inconsistency. You guys know that about me. So it makes it very hard to draft a guy like Travis Etienne on my roster.
Sure. Well, it makes it easy to draft him if you're doing it in the middle rounds or the late rounds, but we're past that point now. Nobody's drafting anymore. Now the question
You'd be surprised. There's still some people drafting.
There's still some. Are you? You still have any drafts?
No,
Are you guys?
done. Finally.
I feel like our hay is in the barn. So now with Travis Etienne, there's going to be multiple running backs in the mix. I think Etienne's going to be the one to lead off. The Carolina run defense will be better than it was last year. It was atrocious last year. The second they lost Derek Brown on that D-line, they fell apart. D. Brown's back. They added Brown, another Brown on top of that, Bobby Brown. I think you're going to see Carolina's defense be a little bit stronger, and I think it's just too many questions for Etienne, so he's at best a flex.
I think that's the best way to approach it, but we'll see if one guy can take the step forward. You would like it to be Etienne based on where he was drafted, or if you were in the Breece Hall camp, you'd like to see maybe both guys in terms of Etienne and Tank Bigsby struggle, and then we see Tootin maybe get the opportunity that he needs because of those two guys in front of him. We'll take a transition now to the guys that we're starting, and I want to get your take, Robert, on Tony Pollard. But Heath, make the case why Tony Pollard is a starter for you in this matchup that could be very difficult against the Denver Broncos.
It could be very difficult, and this is a philosophical thing for me. Fantasy managers have to make their own decisions, but he averaged 24.2 touches per game when Tyjae Spears was out last year. I don't care if you're facing the 85 Bears. If you're going to get 24 touches in an NFL football game, I'm going to start you and hope you fall into some production. I think he probably catches 3 to 4 passes. Probably runs the ball 20 times. You hope he scores a touchdown. He's going to be a low-end RB2 this week.
Robert, what's the most touches you've ever had in a game?
In a game? The most carries I ever had in a game was 15. Touches, somewhere around maybe 24, 25.
Okay, so you would be a guy that Heath would be looking at in that type of scenario.
Yeah,
Robert, just your take on Pollard without Spears there. How do you think he'll do against the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I mean, he's the ace, and so for me, when you get the opportunity and you got a guy like Tony Pollard who's shown that he can, obviously produce, I like him. I like him this week against the Broncos. I know the Broncos got a tough defense, but Tony Pollard's going to get plenty of opportunity. They're going to find ways to get him the ball in multiple spots, and when you look at it from that viewpoint, I think he'll be productive, so I like him as well.
So we have a couple guys that Dave likes and I like that are in more committee backfields, at least the expectation going into the training camp process and even into week 1. So, Dave, you like Jaylen Warren as a starter. I like Aaron Jones as a starter. Robert, when you look at the backfields for Pittsburgh and for Minnesota, is there a clear-cut leader for you from this point forward? Whether it's Jaylen Warren or Caleb Johnson, whether it's Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason, how are you approaching the Pittsburgh and Minnesota backfields this week?
Well, for Pittsburgh, I have no idea who's going to be the clear-cut guy in this backfield, particularly because, you got Caleb Johnson, obviously a rook, and then Jaylen Warren, although he's had some production over the course of his career, he's never had to be the guy, the number one guy. And so that concerns me a little bit in terms of what I'm going to be able to get from him. Aaron Jones has shown over the course of his entire career that he can be a number one. And I think he's still that, even with Jordan Mason in the backfield, in Minnesota. So I'm much more comfortable with Aaron Jones as my starter this week as opposed to Jaylen Warren.
And with Warren, I mean, the breadcrumbs were out there all training camp long. He got a contract extension. The other running backs in Pittsburgh weren't really impressing, certainly not on a consistent basis. And then Mike Tomlin came out and said he's our featured guy. You'll see a little bit of Kenneth Gainwell and Caleb Johnson as the game warrants. I feel pretty good about Jaylen Warren getting a lot of work, kind of in that same vein that we were talking about with Tony Pollard. It's a tough matchup. It's the Jets. It's not going to be easy, but I think he'll be okay this week, so I don't mind starting Jaylen Warren.
I don't mind it either. I love Aaron Jones this week. I absolutely love Aaron Jones this week. Last 12 games against the Chicago Bears, obviously majority of that was with the Green Bay Packers, but even the 2 games last year, he has averaged in those 12 games 18.3 PPR points per game. He owns Chicago. We used to talk about Aaron Jones owning Chicago. Aaron Rodgers used to own Chicago. Let me get that right. Aaron Rodgers used to own Chicago.
Chicago can have 2 owners.
Let's go.
They're both named Aaron.
Yep, Aaron squared owns the Chicago Bears, and Aaron Jones will have a big game. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the season goes on between Jordan Mason and what happens there, but Aaron Jones in week 1 must start running back. Not that there's, I think, a lot of people debating that depending on when he was drafted, but love the setup for him taking on this Bears defense. Let's look at the running backs that we're looking to sit this week. So, Dave, you can make the argument against Tony Pollard because Robert likes him, as does Heath. Heath, you don't like R.J. Harvey. Robert agrees with you on that one. And then I want to talk to Robert about Breece Hall real quick. So why are we sitting Tony Pollard?
Because it's well and good that he might get 20 touches in the game, and it does make sense. I don't know how competitive this game is going to be. This is the Denver Broncos defense that was outstanding last year against the Titans offense piloted by Cam Ward, rookie #1 overall pick, his very first NFL game on the road. This narrative screams trouble for the Tennessee Titans in every way, shape, and form. And so I'm nervous. If the Broncos do what I expect them to do as an offense, it means that the Titans are going to be chasing points, and they might be having to do that before it's even halftime. And that takes Tony Pollard carries off the table for them. It might mean he's going to have to carry his fantasy stats through the air. It's possible, but I don't know if I love it. And the Titans have talked about using another running back alongside Tony Pollard.
Julius Chestnut, here we come. All right, Robert, quickly.
Hello, Mullings, here we come.
Breece Hall, I'm nervous. Steelers matchup, not good. Losing Elijah Vera Tucker, not good. We could see Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis working in. Your thoughts on Breece Hall, again, for this week and for the season?
Yeah, you want to talk about guys who are tough to judge. You know, this week, Breece Hall certainly fits into that category just because we don't know how the Jets are going to use him. You know, he went from a guy who was a perennial RB1, you know, essentially, to a guy that we have no idea you know, how he's going to be used and what kind of production you're going to get, particularly because of Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, who are likely going to be able to rotate, you know, into the fold there in the backfield. And so I wouldn't start him this week, personally. If I got, you know, Breece Hall on my roster, I'm likely not starting him because I need to see first. If I've got depth, you know, I want to hold him and see how the Jets are utilizing him this week.
Yep, certainly want to see that rotation and how the offensive line holds up. They're going to get tested very well against that Steelers defense. All right, Robert, I'm going to give you our sleepers. You pick the one that you like the best and give us your take on these 3 guys here. So for Heath, his sleeper for week 1 is Dylan Sampson, sharing the ball there with Jerome Ford. Dave's guy is Jordan Mason, as we talked about, sharing the ball with Aaron Jones. And my guy is Ollie Gordon. We don't know the full status of Devon Etienne. So you got Gordon taking on the Colts, you got Mason taking on the Bears, and you got Dylan Sampson taking on the Bengals. Who do you like the best?
Ooh. I like Sampson. I like the Sampson pick. All right. He did some good things in the preseason. And you know the Cleveland Browns, you know, they do a good job using multiple backs in their system. And Dylan Sampson is a guy that they like. I'm not very fond of they got the Colts, right? You know,
the Browns have the Bengals.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Definitely not fond of the Bengals run defense at all. Okay. So I think from a run game standpoint, the Bengals can have a lot of success. The Browns can have a lot of success.
I'm learning. You know, it was a year ago we were on this show, and Robert was telling me what an idiot I was for doubting Derrick Henry and doubting Saquon Barkley, and he was right. And I learned over the course of the last year, we're on the same page with like 4 different guys going into week 1. It's going to be a much better season.
Oh, I like it. So we're a little synergy here that we're all on the same page. So like the way that works. All right, Robert, thanks for joining us. We appreciate the running back breakdown. We're going to take a quick break here on Fantasy Football today. When we come back and look at the wide receivers and their rankings for week number 1.